this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Before we start, somebody wants to say hello. Oh, you've gone all shy now, have you? Hey? Somebody wants to say hello. Some scruffy cat. This time of year he gets all scruffy. Come on you, I'm busy. Mojo, aka Fluffy Cat, or Scruffy Cat at the moment. Right, kitchen time. Putting something in a pot. This is a plant I bet everybody's forgotten about. It came out of the box. I'll put the link to the unpacking, unboxing video in the description. If you want to go and see what the plant looked like then, you might pay to stop and go and look at that first. It is the first part of that video. I think there were 2 orchids in the box. And it's the first part, so it's not a long bit, and then you can come back. But what we've got here is a pronunciation issue. How do you pronounce double CH? R-E-C-C-H A-R-A. Rekchara, or just Rechara? Rekchara, I think. But anyway, when this came out of the box, it was in absolutely soggy moss, it still is, but we had 2 lovely little new growths. That must be about 5 weeks ago now. The 2 new growths have pushed on well, and they are maturing. But what's more important now is we've got new roots coming out. Yeah? So some are just starting and some have extended about 1 inch. And that's the point I've been waiting for, because obviously I want to get this moss out, which I'll do under the sink actually, because I've got fragile roots. I don't want to muck about too much. It's old moss as well, not ridiculously old, but compacted, really wet. And as a consequence, how many roots are alive in the middle of the plant? Absolutely none. Not good. Anyway, I will give it a run under the tap and get the last few little bits of see. I mean, that just came out as a lump. That's probably how it was put in, come to think of it. But in amongst here are some dead roots, some old tired roots, and I've always said if you're a little uncertain with a cattleya, don't take the old roots off if they've got any form of substance to them, even if they look a bit tired, because they can branch out. They'll surprise you. What look like, you know, rubbish roots can start to shoot out sideways and create a whole new root system from something that potentially you'd have discarded. No, we got a. The problem is it's grown on from a seedling, and at some point it was buried. So if you look here, this pseudo bulb here, and here, and here, they may dry out, but they're effectively rotting at the base. Not good. It's where they've been buried too deep in moss. But these 2 have got 2 good leaves on, which I don't want to lose. So I'm going to leave them there in the hope that without the moss round the base, they will dry off and not continue. Right, so I'll give that a rinse. Most of the moss has come off reasonably easily actually, but it's a trouble when you get moss. You also get algae all over your roots, which is a form of suffocation really. You know, it's the roots aren't breathing as well as they should do. They do need oxygen around them. Anyway, we'll have a last little clean up. I will give that a spray off with the hydrogen peroxide, as that often starts the process of the, well, it kills the algae, and then as you water, hopefully you wash some of it off. If you want to be really fussy, you can get like something like a really soft toothbrush or something and try and get some of the algae off, but it comes off eventually anyway once it's dead. Yeah, so I don't think that's gone too far. It's not soggy, it's just black where it's been in the wet too long. And then we'll be back, and it's going to go in a holy clay pot, so it's going in there. So I'll give it a clean off and then I'll be back. Right, there we go then. That root system cleaned up quite nicely. Quite a large woody base to the plant, but it contains these two pseudo bulbs. I would normally have cut that off and put some cinnamon on it, but I've left it on the grounds that these are two healthy leaves, and it seems a shame to take, you know, there's 5 bulbs, with those two it's 7. That's a substantial part of the plant's strength, those 2 leaves, helping to, you know, photosynthesize and everything. So I've left them on, and this should be, this is going to get wired in, because trying to stake in a clay pot in large bark is almost impossible. So I'll wire it in. I've pre-wired this. These holy clay pots come with 3 pre-drilled holes around the top. A 3's no good, because when you join 2 of those dots together, you're not in the middle of the pot. You're over to one side. So what I usually do is I find 2 of the holes lower down, just put a loop round there opposite one of the high ones, so that when the plant's in there with the bark, I can get the wire through that little hole. Hopefully, there's usually some language goes with that. Why is that cold? Oh, cleaning the plant off, obviously. Much nicer when it's hot. Now, it's a trifle worrying. My large bark is incredibly low in the bag. There's not a lot left. Thinking about it, I haven't really got much to repot, so I'm certainly not buying a new bag at the moment. And if I needed a relatively small amount in a hurry, then Speciotic Plants on eBay does bark now, and it looks pretty good stuff too, so I'd be happy to use that, you know. I have to pay for the postage, but so be it. So I'm just going to tuck a little bit up underneath the centre of the plant and make a little mound, because it's that's the way it wants to go. Now I want this plant to go quite a way back, but I've still got to be able to wire it. So I think that's probably about where it needs to go. I need to get a bit more bark in. I need it a bit higher in the pot. Not a lot, but the wire will pull it down slightly. And certainly with the smaller holy clay pots, it pays to have the plant sitting quite near the top, so that there's enough media to create a substantial root system. So I reckon that's about it. I'm just going to put a bit more in to sort of hold it in place while I fiddle with the wire, otherwise it's just going to flop over. So this is not really to finish it off yet, it's just to stop it falling over while I get the wire sorted out. Unfortunately, that wire is going to have to go across there, which is where one of the new growths is, so it's going to have to go across there gently, isn't it? And this is where we have the fun trying to get the wire through that little hole. It went through quite easy this time. Reasonably easy. You just ease it through until it gets quite tight, and then get the plant where you want it first, and then you need to pull it reasonably tight, and the reasonably tight pulling is normally done by easing it over with the pliers. So it's pulling it slightly to one side, so I'm just going to ease it back again. Yeah, that's tight enough. And just put a kink in it for now. Yeah, that's nice and firm. And we still have our new roots showing quite near the top. Now the plant itself is sloping backwards a bit, but the 2 new growths are upright. So it's going to be a little unstable. The trouble is, if I try and move it upright now, I could garrot a new growth here. But I know what I can do. just put some bark under that part of the plant. It's not exactly going to stay wet, is it? This large chunky bark in its new state, like now, certainly on the surface of a pot like this, it'd be dry in 2 hours, if that long. It's almost instant. Luckily, it still holds moisture a bit lower down in the pot. Right, so those new roots are just about covered without being buried. As I say, it's there we go. That's not bad actually, because I've known from past experience, if you fill the pot up too much, then when you water it, all the bark comes out just pours over the sides. It's a shame with the bark actually. See, if you were using stones or lava rock or something like that, you could put your cattleyas into soak. But if you use bark and you put them into soak, it all floats out. So it just doesn't work. Right, so now all I need to do now is just tidy that end up so I don't poke myself in the eye or anything. All I do is I snip it off and then tuck it over the rim of the pot, push it down in there. Out of the way, so it's nice and secure. New roots should go straight into the media. So I can find some small bits. Oh, it's funny, I thought there would have been. Oh, it's a bit. That's more like dust, so I meant small bits. It's the trouble when you get near the bottom of a bag of anything, you tend to get the dust and all the smaller bits that have fallen down over time. Right, so that can go back in the bag. Not wasting that. Now that'll have a really good soak now. That will wash the dust off, yeah, and a couple of subsequent waterings will still have a bit of dust in, but not much. Some might say, well, why don't you rinse it first? Because I don't like working with wet media when I'm potting. It sticks to itself, sticks to everything it touches, and you'll often end up with gaps in the pot where it's stuck together and didn't float, you know, didn't roll and float into the gaps. So I don't. There's no gaps in that. If you have a look through all the side holes, there's no gaps in there at all. It's full. And we've got new roots and 2 nice new growths. So I'm pleased with that. Now what we need is a nice new label, of course. Yeah. Especially as we have a new word, you know, Rekchara. I'm going to run with that until corrected. Somebody who knows definitely, rather than guessing. I can guess, I've just done it, you know, but somebody who knows the pronunciation of that definitely. R-E-C-C-H-A-R-A, and I'm going to pronounce that Rekchara on the grounds there's 2 C's and one of them's got an H after it, so that's what I'm going to go with. So there we are, that's that one potted up. It can go out in the grow room now, and hopefully the roots do not object too much, because they were in tightly compacted soggy wet moss. If originally I'd washed all that moss off and put it straight in that bark, those roots would probably have failed. And as I didn't have that many new roots at that point, and you know, there's some growing out now quite nicely, but then there weren't. Well, without the new roots and the old roots failing, the plant starts to desiccate, stalls and dehydrates. So the idea of putting it in that was to get those roots used to being in air. I know they still had moss there, but the moss was allowed to totally dry before it got watered again. So I was acclimatizing them to the wet dry cycle a lot quicker than it ever had been before, because it was in an enclosed pot rather than an open mesh pot. So the roots have been partially acclimatized. The new ones won't care. They'll adapt to whatever they grow in now, so they'll be fine, and there's quite a few of them. So even if I lose some of the older roots, it's not a big deal because I waited. Had I done it straight away, it could have stalled the plant. Anyway, hopefully these 2 new growths will not only grow on, but I'd hope at least one of them will bloom. It's an unbloomed plant that has been grown on. You know, smaller pseudobulbs leading to larger ones grown on, rather than a division. But it hasn't bloomed. But the previous growth, which is the biggest, had a nubbin in it, so it came close, just didn't possibly have enough maturity. But hopefully one of these two will, and we'll have those gorgeous blooms to look at, which is why I got it. Right, that's that one done. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.